What if I told you that after World War II, some of the most notorious Nazi war criminals, men responsible for genocide and atrocities, escaped justice? With help from the Catholic Church? It sounds like a wild conspiracy, but it's true. The Vatican played a direct role in helping high-ranking Nazis vanish into new lives. This is the story of the Ratlines and how the road to South America passed through the heart of Rome. The year is 1945. Nazi Germany has fallen. The Allies are dividing up Europe, and war crimes trials are being planned in Nuremberg. But thousands of Nazis, not just foot soldiers, but architects of the Holocaust, are desperate to escape. Many feared not just execution, but the exposure of secrets that could embarrass powerful institutions. Enter the Vatican, an institution that was supposed to represent morality, peace, and justice. Instead, some of its highest officials became part of a shadow network. This network would later be known as the Ratlines. It wasn't just one route, but a series of escape paths through Italy, Austria, and Spain, leading Nazi fugitives to safety in places like Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. How did it work? With forged documents, Vatican passports, safe houses in monasteries, and help from clergy members who believed they were aiding anti-communists rather than war criminals. One of the central figures was Bishop Alois Hudel, an Austrian cleric stationed in Rome. Hudel openly sympathized with fascist ideology and saw the Nazis as defenders of Christian Europe against the rise of atheistic communism. Using his position and connections, Hudel helped dozens, perhaps hundreds of Nazis obtain new identities and travel papers. Among them, Franz Stangl, the commandant of Treblinka, Gustav Wagner, deputy of Sabib, and even Adolf Eichmann, the mastermind of the final solution. Eichmann fled Europe with a Red Cross passport issued under a false name. With support from church-affiliated aid organizations, he later resurfaced in Argentina, where he lived until Israeli agents captured him in 1960. But Hudel wasn't the only one. Other clerics across Europe, especially in Italy and Croatia, ran similar operations. The argument was that they were helping refugees, displaced persons, and those fleeing the chaos of post-war Europe. But the truth was murkier. Many of the people being sheltered had blood on their hands, and the church, or at least factions within it, chose to look the other way, justifying their actions with Cold War paranoia. The logic was simple. The Soviets were now the enemy. Anyone who had fought them, even Nazis, could be considered useful. This moral compromise allowed the Ratlines to flourish under the radar. In some cases, Allied intelligence services, especially the Americans, also looked the other way. The US was recruiting former Nazis for their knowledge of Soviet tactics, missile technology, and espionage. Operation Paperclip brought Nazi scientists like Werner von Braun to America. But while that was official and known, the Vatican's involvement was shadowy and far more controversial. The evidence of Vatican involvement came to light over decades. Declassified documents, testimonies, and investigative journalism have uncovered an intricate network of priests, bishops, and charity groups that coordinated the escape. In 19 Journalist Mark Ahrens and Nazi hunter Ephraim Zuroff published damning evidence of the church's role. They showed how religious charities were used as fronts for moving fugitives, and how some priests baptized Nazis under false names to grant them new identities. One infamous route went from Rome to Genoa, where fugitives boarded ships bound for South America. The port city became a gateway, and local clergy were key intermediaries. Why did the Vatican get involved? Some historians argue it was ideological, a belief that Nazism, while flawed, was preferable to communism. Others suggest it was institutional self-preservation. The Vatican feared exposure of its own wartime dealings, including silence during the Holocaust. Pope Pius XII remains one of the most controversial figures in this story. He never publicly condemned Hitler. His defenders say he worked behind the scenes to help Jews. His critics argue that his silence enabled mass murder, and that post-war complicity with the Ratlines continued that moral failure. What's clear is this: hundreds of Nazi fugitives evaded justice with help from the Catholic Church. The full extent of the Ratlines may never be known. Some records remain sealed. Others were destroyed. But the survivors and their descendants and the countries they fled to still live with the consequences. Today, the Vatican has never formally apologized. Some clergy members have acknowledged the Church's failures during and after the war. But no institutional reckoning has occurred. It's a chilling reminder that even the most trusted institutions can be swayed by ideology, fear, or the desire for control. The next time someone tells you that history is black and white, remind them of the Ratlines, a story where the lines between good and evil were deliberately blurred. If you found this eye-opening, share it. These are the stories history books leave out, but we can't afford to forget. Subscribe for more true stories that challenge what you thought you knew.